Hey, well, the Inforunners, I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by Badges and Algared.
Hello.
Old man Hurston himself.
Now, Execute, you shouldn't be saying that. Unless you're going to be very kind and considerate,
Hey, I've seen the thumbnail that Paul dropped today for that law pastor episode we're in. People were going to think of wonder what we're up to, so...
I think you got the wrong hat. It's just too small.
So we'll have to see. But yeah, that artwork they got of you was spot on.
It is pretty good.
They got your likeness pretty well. Actually, they probably made you look more suave than you actually are because they had quite a fancy suit on. So
yeah, well, it was done in Hurston style, So it's the Hurston clothing line, as you see in all the other Hurstons in Lawville, in Lawville.
So I
would hazard a guess that Algared is the only member of the Star Citizen community that turns up in a waistcoat to stream. So I feel like he is the suave gent of. Well, this is true.
It's the law guys. I don't know if Jail doesn't seem to though. Jail was just like me. He's like in a shirt and a t-shirt. Anyway, we're getting tangented again. We haven't even started.
Hey, but it's just what we do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to call the like, subscribe, ring the bell thing at the start. Get that out of the way.
And we'll do it at the end as well, just to remind you, because
Yeah, because if you like this type of content, it helps us out. The algorithm's been slapping us around a bit lately, but we're going to try and see if we can fix that. So yeah. Anyway, I was in a game the other day with a couple of Aussie mates, and we were talking, and I'm just like, why is it so slow that I've got to catch a train? And why, like I hate going down to planet. I always live up a space station. I just kind of had this epiphany. I was just like, is the game going to stay this slow? Is there actually going to be reasons for me to go down? Like, why would I, like right now in the game, there's no real motivation to go to a planet over somewhere else unless I'm going for like a specific shop. And so I wanted to look at that with you guys and get your thoughts, and basically, like, is it going to remain? I think it is kind of going to remain this slow, just to But what are the benefits, and how are they going to encourage you to want to live on a planet over living in a space station? Because let's be honest, is there anyone that you know that doesn't live on the space station above said planet at the moment? I can tell you people live at Port Alice if they could, but
I'll hang my head in shame.
Where do you live, Algared, at the moment?
Lawville.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's where my default location is, but I tend to live at Everest. So, and that's mainly because it just takes the trains drive me nuts. Yeah. And I have to wonder, is that just going to be a thing? They're going to have some kind of train on every single planet, or is it just a couple of planets they're going to have it?
And it raises another issue, like if you do fast travel, like there are other games, you like Lotro, you could do fast travel on a horse, and it would kind of do the horse really quickly. And they might do something like that, where you could actually, get on the fast travel horse and it'd take its time to get there. And I think WoW did the same. But while it was doing that fast travel, it wasn't a teleport. But you didn't have to worry about being intercepted or knocked off your horse while you're traveling or something like that. And then when you get to your location, it'd drop you off a horse. And then that was your time you'd go to the loo or go make a coffee or go get something to eat. Or you could do it manually and then risk getting knocked off a horse or encounter, so. But it does raise issues in terms of the loading and unloading of ships. If I can quickly just zip up to the space station with no time frame, then it unbalances those who do normal, and they clearly want you to be traveling on the train. So yeah, it's almost like a conundrum, isn't it?
It's almost like a meaning for your actions type of thing. And I don't know about you, Badges, but for me, I think it's a part of the game at the moment. Like it's how do I put this? I think it's probably because let's be honest, it's a little buggy at the moment. And 9 times out of 10, when I die, I can't speak for you, but this is why I'm asking you, when you do die, is it more a bug these days? Because for me, it's generally a bug. Or I'm going too fast and I crash on the ground. Okay, I'll be honest. That's when I die. When I'm going too fast.
You got to be honest. Yeah. You can't claim it's a bug. We've seen you die on the stream too many times when you've been flying too fast.
Deceleration on moons versus deceleration on planets. Discuss.
My face.
I think. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think the first time we're going to see this change is when we get property that we can buy. So I would guess and I would hope that the sort of hubs that we have now would become like your airport travel lodge, Holiday Inn style, in that if you're just staying for a short time, you could have a temporary hub that you rent at the spaceport, so you don't have to venture out into the city. You don't have to risk public transport, all that sort of stuff. And then like that transition into the city via the trams might be something that we see when we can own property. So that's obviously not going to be at the spaceport because spaceport's a finite space.
You really bring up, like, this is going to tangent like crazy, but like I now think of things like, say we live on Microtech somewhere in the remote and we drive down to the train station and there actually is a train that goes all the way around the planet. And you could literally, like, is that going to be a thing? Like, are they going to make trains all, like, from cities to cities and stuff like that? And is there going to be multiple cities on planets?
Yeah, we kind of know that, or Terra is going to have that. So we know there are going to be multiple major landing zones. I don't see why there wouldn't be in other places, especially when you've got military facilities. Excuse me. You might find that you have the main Algared, you might have the main civilianized landing zone, and then you might have the military base. And of course, you've got to have some way of getting your workers to and from. There's got to be some way to access that base. Military personnel don't always live on base. They got to get in, got to do their shopping like any other sort of person, unless it's sort of more hostile territory.
And if you look at ArcCorp, you get another case, because we've got Area 18 as a landing zone at the moment, but we've also got the landmarks for Area 16 and Area 17 or whatever it is. So are there going to be rail links to that where you're going to have to fly your ship there? I would expect both.
Yeah, so it'd be more major areas you'd have to
major hubs may have them.
But something like Microtech only really has New Babbage and Hurston only really has Lawville, but it does have all those little outposts. So I think you're right. It will be some planets and not others, yeah?
And yet it also raises that if you build it, they will come. So if you were able to buy some land on Microtech, when you build a settlement and it becomes a major player hub, would they actually lay a rail link?
I reckon they would.
Between there. And I reckon they would.
Retroactively go back and put in a monorail or whatever, depending on the planet you're on.
And then I imagine if the players were a major hub, built a major hub, you'd actually get NPCs starting to pop up and grow in that area as well. So the world becomes dynamic. As we're talking about the reason for going down the planet, I was thinking of one of the things Chris has always said, the way he wanted if the area was thriving, you'd get it'd all be pristine and nice. But if it was under duress, you'd see a lot more graffiti and rubbish and stuff. So you look at Microtech, pristine and lovely. Apparently everything's going sweet there. You look at Orison, apparently everything's going really sweet unless you go to Siege of Orison where you get the litter and the graffiti. You go to Hurston and ArcCorp, and there's litter and there's rubbish and it's accumulating, and it's clear that those two places are not happy places to be. And so going down the planet, and being on the planet and walking around the planet, you get to see that level of, is this a thriving community? Is it a struggling community? Are there issues here? And just by walking through, you'll get that sense of that just by, is it graffiti all over the place? Is it litter? Is it, and you'll get a sense of that. So in a sense, it becomes an intrinsic part of the gameplay of being able to not just listening to the news feed and the BS they're telling you, but actually being able to see it. And I think that will become important as well.
So for me, there has to be a few more things like that justifies the length to get to there. So either some shops that are, like at the moment it's basically shops, right? Shops, but also facilities. So things like, to give an example, one of the ones I can think of is at ArcCorp and Hurston, and there's also one at, I believe there's one at New Babbage, which is the trading consoles. That's a big thing. What is the advantage of a normal trading console over just selling an admin? At the moment, it's the same. Is there going to be like different market rates? Are you going to get an up? Is there a what are the are there going to be bouncing guilds and stuff like that? Like, so I'm expecting the facilities to increase. I've even thought of things like, and I said this to you guys before the show, what if they change space stations to only go to tier 2 beds? You know, so if you want a tier 1 bed, you've got to go down to a major city or something like that. There just isn't the draw at the moment that I believe that there should be to justify that wait on this lengthy train ride.
No, I think sorry, Algared, go on.
Go on. Oh, no, go on, Badgers.
I think that draw is coming. You know, they've mentioned that the intention is for people, in effect, to be able to spawn on a planet with no ship and earn their way up to having a ship. So I think the train actually, in terms of gameplay, and X, you're going to be able to talk to this far better than I am. But from a layman's perspective, the train almost symbolizes that shift from space exploration ship and all that sort of stuff into a city. And now you are, you have a passenger, you're watching the city go past, it's establishing scene, it's establishing location. And now you're transiting into, well, hang on, why have I gone from epic space battles against the Vandal to I'm a janitor cleaning up trash in Area 18?
You actually bring up a really important question there, because now I'm thinking
because
like
you're working for the man.
Yeah, if you get stuck on a station, does that mean you have to do some kind of quest that sends you to one of the cities? Like you can only do those on foot quests in a city. That might be the case, actually. Now you bring it up.
I could even see you getting billed to do menial labour on the stations, like whether it was just mopping the floors or doing menial repairs or evaying out and doing outside repairs because it's more dangerous. So you're expendable. I could see that being the types of stuff, and that would earn you the cash, and then you'd go down to planet and do more jobs and build up your rep and.
Yes.
So I could see that type of thing being
exactly, and we saw during the last physical Citizen Con back in 2019, we saw them show off AI piloted transports. So where we were talking about connecting rail routes, it might be that the first thing that you actually get is you get a pad that is basically your bus stop, and they're now running some sort of NPC controlled transport around that you can jump on. And if you've got that between station and planet, you can go, okay, well, hang on, the station's going to have massively limited employment opportunities, because you'd kind of think, or you'd hope, that a station had the staff it needed. It didn't just kind of build the station and then go, oh, maybe we should think about staff now.
So you're onto it there, because in the station, like in the, I want to say stations, I mean stations on planet, like if you go down to Lawville, there actually is like a domestic and interplanetary landing thing, which I'd assume Genesis Starliners would be doing that type of stuff.
You've also got the situation where, if you look at the very early economy document, and this is going back to, way back to like 2014 type stuff, where they talked about what they were hoping the economy would be, and they talked about the types of hubs. So you'd have the hub that would generate workers, and the hub that would generate military, and the hub that would generate diamonds or resources or other stuff. And depending on the hub would depend on what type of work or military or mercenary or scientist or whatever would generate, but also the types of goods those areas would produce as well. And so that also has an impact as well. So if you're after workers, you're going to, or employees or NPCs to crew your ships, will you be able to get those on the planet, or do you have on the station, or you're going to need to go down to the planet and go to the, job well or someone like that to hire them? And so I can see those types of things. Or go to the guild office to employ those people, or go, or pick up some random NPC who may not be, I can do engineering. I just want to get off the planet, but I can do an engineering. Yep. And then you find that they crap at it because they're not really trained. You go to the guild, they give you someone who is a better NPC, but they also cost you more. So
in a rounded about type of way what you're kind of saying, Algared, is it's kind of like how shops are at the moment, where sometimes you have to travel to somewhere to get that rare item, but then at somewhere like a city, there are more readily accessible items. So if you are specifically looking for Fred the engineer, who is a level 5 engineer, you might have to travel all the way to Cruel 5 or something like that, because that just happens to be like he's got some kind of personality where he doesn't want to be around the city or something like that. But then you can very commonly get 3 and 4 stars at the cities because of massive people.
Well, and even just look at the planets. If you were after an engineer, if you're thinking of the planets at the moment, probably or a systems engineer to work on components, the place you'd go to, you wouldn't go to Microtech or Hurston. You'd go to ArtCorp, because that's the hub where all the components are generally built and manufactured. So you'd think that may have more engineers. If you're after a computer engineer, you're going to hit Microtech, because that's where that stuff's going. So there'd be different. There might be different specialty engineers for different locations as well. So.
So
that would force you to go down to the planets as well, wouldn't it?
So one other aspect we haven't looked at when it comes to the speed of the game is travel time is another one, and going to more remote areas. So one of the things for me at the moment is that ends a lot of sessions, and I think you guys would agree, is something goes wrong, like a bug or something, and you are out at some moon, and basically the way people... I wonder if this is going to be at the end game, is what I'm trying to say, is basically some bug happens and it's bugs. It's got to be bugs. Like I'm running it back through my head. It's got to be bugs, and someone somehow can't be recovered, and it's going to take them 25 minutes to get back to everyone else, so they just check out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think...
I even do that when I'm playing solo. If I have a bug and I'm my home's Hurston, and that's where I still am, and I have a bug that kills me, and it sends me back to Hurston. I go, yep, okay.
Yeah. So
done for the night.
Go ahead.
I think what we're kind of doing there is that we're shaping kind of why the game is so slow at the minute. I mean, you said at the beginning, and I unhelpfully sidestepped your question, which was, with the deaths, what effect is that having on slow gameplay? Is that slowing things down too much? Now we're talking about the bugs and the impact they have.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably likely coming on to how long it just takes to get a party together because of those two things, and gearing up the new guy, and oh god, you spawned in Hurston, so you can't buy guns, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, even when we do a stream or something, Badges at Microtech and I'm at Lawville, as an example, it takes us 10-15 minutes just to get together,
It was one of the reasons I stopped joining us on the Friday live stream, because either, it'd take us 10 minutes to get there, or one of us would crash and we'd go back to a starting location and it'd be another 10-15 minutes to get together, and it was like, give me a break.
And don't get me started on prison. Whoo, boy.
But it raised another issue. Like you look around the game, how many people do you see who run everywhere? Like, it's more rare to see someone who's walking around rather than running around. Everyone's into a sprint. Yeah. And you notice that a lot. And I think that gives an indication. And face it, in MMOs, everyone runs everywhere usually.
Yes.
So, but it gives an indication of people feel time is necessary. And yet when you walk, you see lots of little things that you don't necessarily catch. I was walking through the hangars the other day, and I noticed for the first time that up the top you've got these hangar doors, 1, 2, 3 or whatever, and it looks like, that's where they're going to say the ships are spawned, and they come from and get landed in the hangar before you pick it up. But I hadn't seen that before. It was like, and yet I know it had been there all the time. It wasn't a new graphic or anything. It was just I hadn't noticed it.
So put it the other way, Algared, though, you get someone that's time poor. So someone that can only play on the weekends because they work 5 days a week.
Yep.
I just, is this going to be a game for them? You've got to ask that honest question, because if they're going to get in and they've got a minimum, right now they've probably got a minimum 2-hour time investment.
Yep.
Some people don't have that time. They've only
and
got an hour.
If you walk from your hab to a train station and train station to that's 15 minutes.
Yep, and
and
I've seen people
that can be a killer.
So I've seen people go, all right, I spent an hour, and then the game's just died on me. It's going to take me another hour to get back. I'm just going to go because I'm not going to waste another hour just to get here and not have anything to do when I get here. So I might as well leave now. I've seen that before as well. So.
Yeah, well, that's often when I stop. If I've been starting and the game started, I've done something and then the game crashes. I think, yeah, okay.
It's really interesting point though, isn't it? Because I mean, like for everyone that's played GTA 5, right, especially the online version, we've all got so bored of it that we've actually gone, do you know what? For the next half hour, I'm going to drive and obey all the signals, and I'm going to stop at all the lights just for the immersion. And that sort of thing is fun for a very short space of time when you're breaking the norm. Because normally you're screeching down sidewalks, running people over, banging into people, driving down whatever it is, the bank and, along the beach and whatever else. It's fun for a short amount of time. I guess the question is, does fast travel break the immersion?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be something that they're going to have to put in to overcome these short... Or is it going to be such that, these locations, there's going to be enough to do, enough going on, or cleverly designed enough that from your hub to the spaceport is literally one hop like it is at the minute, and then everything else is the other way. So if you're going to go out into the city and experience it and make it feel like a living city, that's completely in the opposite direction to the spaceport. So you literally just get on the train, go to the spaceport, get in your ship, go into space. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it feels like two things, right? So I'm trying to weigh it up in my head. It's like, so give the game the benefit of the doubt and remove all bugs in your head, and then you add it up. I still think the biggest time sink in this game is going to be travel, no matter what, whether you're traveling on a train or traveling from one side of Pyro to the other. There is just so much missing at the moment. Like they talk about all this stuff that you're going to have to do on ships while you travel. We've got none of that at the moment. What are those things going to be to do? Is it just ship maintenance? Like they're just so much to add to try and calculate that in your head.
Yeah, and then you've got the idea that people, Pyro is 3 times the size of Hurston in distance, and so there'll be places in Pyro to get there. It's going to take you 3 times as long. Now they may speed up the time and make it, so that travel time in Pyro is faster and slow down the times in Stanton. Maybe they may do several things, but it's still going to take time, and that's and then you've got the issue of rep, certainly in areas like Pyro where you've got different gangs as well. So, so there are issues that do kind of play, and you do want the fast. You almost want a kind of fast travel type idea, but you don't want that fast travel to be one that stops, that gives you an unfair advantage over some. If I can just teleport to somewhere and be there and then do what I want, that's kind of negating that whole idea of why we're having the cargo refractor where we've got to reload and unload our ships.
It's definitely a delicate balancing act between, people that are time poor and people that, don't work or something like that. But even then, like the thing that really sets this MMO apart, let's be honest. Like I'm going to compare it to WoW. The travel in WoW was you basically go to one of the flight vendors and you pay money, and it's just on rails from one side to the other.
Yeah,
but you don't have to be there.
So you don't have to be there. Nip to the loo or grab yourself something to eat or whatever it is you're going to do. Alt tab out and watch something.
Same in Dark Age of Camelot. If you could ride to the location if you wanted, or you could take a fast travel. And and when it was doing fast travel, you couldn't get attacked. It'd just ride you there and then hop off your horse and you'd be next to the stable guy at the end. Yeah.
Pretty standard, but then again, let's look what they're planning to add in. Like you've got to, let's just say we're going from Lorville to Crusader, right? You got to fly up. You got to fly. You've also got to, not only that, you've got to travel to the space station. You've got to pull out your ship. You've got to get in your ship. You've got to turn on your ship. You've got to go up to through the atmosphere. And at the moment, you can warp from one side to the other. But there are things like interdiction and stuff like that. If you are on a ship with multiple people, probably not so bad, because if you're the one going to the toilet, someone else can fly.
But I think that's where the fast travel will come in. We'll go to the domestic terminals, and it'll take us to there, and then we'll finish, and we'll be in a domestic terminal waiting.
So my whole point is my whole point though is it's just not an A to B like in other games. Sorry, Badgers.
Yeah, if I could offer up another game to compare it to, that hopefully they will. I mean, you can't. There's no direct comparison here, right? So I'm not saying for a second that any of the things I'm about to describe we should be able to do in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
But for anyone that's played Sea of Thieves, when you're moving from one side of the map to the other, that is a long time. But now it's gone through the amount of iterations it's gone through. It's actually really fun, and you can sum it up in one word: is opportunity. You go past little debris fields that have loot floating in them. You can find sunken ships that you can go down and get the loot out of. You can just sail past islands, and because you've got to stock your ship up, I would argue that's the boring part of Sea of Thieves. You've got to stock it up with cannonballs, planks so you can repair it. You've got to stock it up with food so you can heal the damage that you take. You would jump off at islands when you go past. You'd empty all your stuff out into the ship. You'd jump off, you'd catch the mermaid, which would quick travel you back to your ship, and you'd stock it up. And I'm not suggesting for a second we could do that in Star Citizen, just EVA out onto a planet, loot some stuff, and then fast travel back to our ships. What I am suggesting is that if they give us opportunity to get involved in all of this stuff, give us one of the most interesting things from Sea of Thieves, and this does tie directly to Star Citizen, is watching for other ships, because they're your biggest threat. Even when the Kraken appears, your biggest threat is another a ship with other players on it.
Well,
so make scanning and all that sort of gameplay like that. Push out my horizons. Give me the option to know there are energy signals around so that I can plan my route, so that the star map becomes less of a functional A to B, alt tab out while it's happening. Hopefully the police don't stop me and I get a crime stat while I'm AFK. Make it something where I've actually got to start thinking about the way I want to go. Maybe I quantum jump halfway in one direction, stop mid-quantum, realign, so I'm coming at a planet from a completely unexpected angle to avoid all the traffic, because I don't want to lose what I've got on board.
What you just mentioned there is probably similar to why they're doing the gates. The gates on the what are they called? Aaron Halo gates.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got give us the options. Give us the random encounters like derelicts and stuff like that. But make those things that we can identify in transit and choose whether or not we want to engage with them.
And I think if
hang on, I need to say this because I've been wanting to say it since you talked the last time, Algared. So what Algared said about the domestic flight terminals and intergalactic travel where you take like a Genesis Starliner, I have to say, well, what's the other extreme of that? You get on, you've got to go find your seat, you sit down, you have to literally wait there for the entire flight as it flies up and across to Crusader from Lawville and then lands, and then you got to get off and, is there an NPC that you're potentially interacting with? Or is it like Algared said, and you literally just get on the plane and it pops and you're on the other side? Because I'd be honest, with what they're showing right now, I would say it's what I described. Not what Algared said.
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying you're there automatically. You hop on the Starfarer or the Starliner, and if the Starliner, just like when you get on a World of Warcraft transport, you get on the.
But where's the fun, Algared? Where's the fun in that? Like that seems so derogatory, boring to me.
Some people want to do that. Some people will want to do that quick travel where they don't. The quick travel is I don't need to worry about being stopped by security or stuff. I can go get lunch. I can go get whatever. I can go do whatever. I can do toilet breaks or whatever. I don't have to be there. I don't have to worry about being interdicted. The other way is Badger's way, where you're doing that individually and you've got the opportunity. Oh, there's a wreck over there. I can interact with that wreck. I can check that out. And so the opportunity's there for you to do the other stuff. So
don't even mention
if it's an instant.
Don't even mention if pirates turn up while you're traveling.
Yeah.
The Genesis Starliner could be pulled over. So it could actually, even though you're not flying, there could still be that interception interaction.
But if you're on that quick travel, just like when you do World of Warcraft or you did Dark Age of Camelot, if you were doing the quick travel, you couldn't be interdicted. That would be the safe thing. And then when the flight ended, you'd end up in the terminal again at the end.
Let's throw this to the comments then. Do you guys honestly think quick travel is going to be a thing? Because I don't feel it is. Like the way the design is going, it seems like everything is very manual and hands-on and all that stuff. And I'd like to hear in the comments the pros and cons of it. The pros are obvious, obviously, because that's what we kind of have in games now. But are you really getting that depth? Like, yes, you are getting the immersion, but what? Yeah. Like, picture yourself, because that's probably the most boring scenario I can think of. You are literally getting onto an airplane S-type thing, and say you're catching it from Hurston to Lorville, and they might have a slower engine. They might not have an XL1, you know what I mean, or what equivalent. So they might slow their, it might be in a 15-minute flight. What are the things they're going to have while you're sitting in your chair with your table tray in its upright position and keep your arms inside the vehicle? No, but like, what are you going to be doing there? Are they going to have a little Mobigas game for you to play? Like, you've got to think that all through. There's quite a bit of stuff.
When you would do fast travel on Dark Age of Camelot, your travel times could be 10 minutes. And that was just going around the residential area. It could be a 10-minute horse ride to go from point A to point B. Yeah. Going around Kingdom, it could be 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, but you've got something to look at, like in WoW, when you're on the creature, you're flying through the world and you kind of got something to look at. You're sitting on an aeroplane, and unless you're in a window seat, you get what you could literally be in the middle.
90% of the people I know who used to do quick travel, they'd use that to get their lunch or their toilet break or go get a drink or whatever.
Yeah.
Crying kids on the plane, the fat guy sitting you squeezed in. Like, I can see it all now. Like, it's crazy.
I'm getting flight anxiety just listening to this. So, yeah, I mean, I think the problem there is the whole blockade system, is that it undoes the blockade. If you're trying to prevent an opposing org from reinforcing a system, to give people ways to manually circumvent that, intentionally circumvent it by suddenly arriving with 300 org members in a way that you can't stop. What's the point in blockades? What's the point in that sort of interdiction? And this is the interesting thing with balance, isn't it? Is the quick travel makes a game more accessible.
But then CIG have said we won't be able to do blockade systems. We might be able to do like the pirates do, the Nine-Tails do, and lock down a station for a little while. And now imagine if it was I would imagine if there was a lockdown of, say, Hurston L Lagrange Point 5, and you've normally got a flight that a quick travel that goes to Hurston Lagrange Point 5. If that's in lockdown, the flights aren't going to go there. They're going to be cancelled or delayed.
I think you'll be surprised, Algared. Like, we're only meant to make up 10% of the population, but if you go to a smaller system, if you go to a system that's only got one jump point, stuff like that, you will be able to do blockades. That will be a thing.
And I know that's one of the things. And there'll be orgs that go, we are going to lock down every station on,
And I guess the other thing is
we can.
How fast is the quick travel?
Yep.
So, if we're en masse in an enemy system, and we notice that they've got a fleet leading to attack our org base in that system, can we cheese the system by using the quick travel to get back quicker than them, and then mount a defense ready to go? And then does that like completely remove the element of surprise from things? So it's I'm not necessarily making a case one way or the other. I'm just saying that this isn't just about convenience now because of the way CIG are laying the game out. So it's also about, how do I use this to cheese the system? How do I use it to break it? How do I use it to gain an unfair advantage over my opponent?
So I'm sitting here thinking of like what it would be like to be on that flight, right? Like a domestic or intergalactic flight. And I think the reason it would be kind of boring is to motivate you to get your own bloody ship, in a way.
I think another way CIG could approach it is just remove the whole fast travel element by making the alternative interesting. Maybe there's a little bit of what's the game where you've got to clean up after other people after an FPS level. There's a game, it's something like Space Caretaker, but the premise is basically you go to FPS levels after other players have gone through and killed everyone. So you're like cleaning up body parts and mopping up the blood and setting everything back ready for like the next player to play the level.
I don't know what it's called, but it should be called Gibbed.
But it's like that, do the players who want to take care of their ships and have them pristine, do we have that sort of like next level maintenance you can do on your ship while you're traveling? So people walk on and, like they're talking about adding layers of grime, like Algared was talking about the levels of attention they put to cities. Will we have the same thing for the ships, where you walk onto someone's ship and go, bloody hell, you take care of this thing. This thing's pristine. You're like, there's no grime anywhere, there's no pools of oil, there's no nothing else. Whereas the people who really don't care, you walk onto their ship and you're like, wow, I'm not eating it unless it comes out of a sealed packet.
And you get the feeling that players will do that, because what's the biggest complaint you always have? Why are the ships always looking so dirty?
Yes.
Why can't we have clean ships? Why can't we pay to have the ship looking pristine and clean? And so full well there are players who do want their ships to look clean. They don't want cables lying on the floor.
We know they have that tech for ships, and we did talk about on a live stream about them having it for outposts too. So I fully expect that's kind of, they've talked about hygiene on players. We're getting wear and tear on almost everything. So you kind of run that through. I really think that is going to be a thing. Can you pay for a new coat of paint? Can you pay for someone to come, can you pay an NPC to be a janitor to come and clean up your place if you don't want to do it yourself?
And think of all the other things that you could do in transit. You've got repair and maintenance and all that sort of stuff. But if you've got NPC crews, why couldn't you have some form of training? You can run an exercise, like a gunnery exercise or a fire exercise. And when you do that, there's like a diminishing level of buff, effectively, you apply to that NPC. So for the next 8 hours, they are better at firefighting than they otherwise would have been. On a diminishing scale. So you've got to rerun these exercises. I mean, that's just one idea, right? You could do something with your NPC crew. You could do something that gives yourselves a buff. Maybe you run a firefighting exercise for your own guys. So you run a simulated decompression somewhere or whatever it is.
I was thinking back to what you said about when you're on planets and you got to get off the planet or whatever, where you lost your ship or whatever, and things like being a janitor for other players or other NPCs, those low-level jobs that are normally just for NPCs is probably what those quests will be, And so in a bigger city, you have more jobs. That's just a fact, There are more people, more jobs.
Which means more money, which means quicker to get off the planet.
You run that through your head. What are the different quests you can get? Do you become a retail salesman at Casabla? Do you, are you the janitor that is working in, the Hurston offices, cleaning up after all the rich guys when they're puking their guts out from the Evercrack?
Scrubbing the graffiti off the walls. The Uber girls. Getting rid of their propaganda.
So you could actually have some really interesting quests that actually do tie into the lore and the gameplay that are unique to every location. There could be some you get stuck on Grimhex and you get where I'm going there real quick.
On Grimhex, you're not cleaning, you're actually trying to patch for holes so that
it's literally the duct tape mission, like
in some of the professions I think will lend to this as well. I mean, if you look at the Expanse, that thing, you're on route, you've got a 20-minute quantum time. You could be doing the refining stuff while you're in quantum. So you could be doing that mini game in transit, as long as they're not going to put something in that stops that. Yeah, data running, you could be decrypting that military transmission to figure out exactly what it is, so you know who to sell it for the most effective price.
You're flying to Hurston trying to decrypt the thing, and when you finally decrypt it, it says, "Don't go to Hurston."
Yes, that. Yeah. They're waiting for you. They know you're coming.
Go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, so I can see that definitely come into play. You can copy that across to a lot of the different professions, but okay, let's roll it back to say something like cargo. What's that going to be? What's the maintenance on a cargo? Is it just checking the manifest?
Well, checking the front desk, checking the.
So it doesn't work for every.
Down, right.
My point being is it doesn't work for every profession. When, at least at the moment, that might change down the line. No. Like there might be something like if you're carrying cold cargo, you've got to constantly maintain the temperature of a particular room or cargo crate or something like that. That could be a thing, right?
Yeah. If you're carrying live cargo, you've got to feed it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking.
Well, even if you just use the 400 eyes containers, the climate control rooms, you've got to check the climate control every so often to make sure it's done, because power fluctuations or whatever could screw it up.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be something that has to be done during transit. For those people who, exactly as you're saying, Algared, do you know what? I got 15 minutes in Quantum. I'm going to alt-tab out. I'm going to eat some food. I'm going to watch part of my series on Netflix, and then I'm going to come back 15 minutes later.
And that's where those quick travel type things can work. When we're talking quick travel, I've got to say, because there'll be some people who say, "Oh, quick travel, you're meaning I'm there," but we're not talking that. We're not talking instantaneous teleportation. We're talking, it's
on
like,
rails is what you're talking. Yeah?
It's travel on rails, and I could see that being a thing. There'll be, and even if it's just for the sake that there will be players who want that, who use that just to get to the location A, and it means that. If there's a system lockdown or a station lockdown, then flights to that station are delayed or stopped, just like if it's a weather front,
or even turned around.
Turned around,
like you were saying, Badges. Like if there's a lockdown, so the NPC tries to get through, and if you shoot it enough, it either turns around and runs, or it gets destroyed. Like it could be random again, based on the personality of the captain and stuff like that. Different outcomes. So you could be sitting down on a flight per wire, so to speak. So once you get in your seat, it's a flight per wire, and it tries to get there, but you could end right back where you started because it can't get in there. So that solves your
diverts to a different station.
Even that, right? But you get my point. That actually speaks to what you're talking about, Badges, with the way to be able to just circumvent the blockade. So that, man, there's some advanced things in there, but if we get there, that definitely allows for everything you were just describing about to, kind of alt tab and YouTube for a bit or get some food. Yeah. I think the other part to add in there real quickly is as soon as you bring it into group play, one person goes to the toilet while one person looks after the ship, stuff like that. So there's actually going to be, is that an advantage over solo play? Like do solo players have the option to turn on some kind of, what do you call it? Like a fly-by-wire mode, like just why they're, I don't want any distractions while I'm flying, or does it make a really big alarm that you hear out of game to let you know that you're being addicted? Like there's so many questions there, or they're just like, be damned, it's the risk because you're playing on your own.
Well, we know they've talked about having Spectrum be able to be accessed on the phone and be linked to the game, so we know that's something they've talked about. But also, I was just thinking of when I used to do DAOC, and wow, we might be in different locations. We'd all get the horse or the fast travel or the griffin or whatever it was to a location, and then that was the way we all got to the same location quick, because the fast travel kind of would take the same, roughly the same time. And so you could see that type of thing. We're in different locations in Stanton, rather than you flying in Aurora or me flying, the slow ship, and you having a faster. I think we get the fast travel or the quick travel or whatever you want to call it, and we all end up at the same location because we all end up at the domestic terminal.
There's also a thing like, say, I was playing with Badges today, and tomorrow I want to play with Algared, and Algared's 6 systems away. Do I, get on a domestic flight to wherever Algared is and just, leave it running overnight and it gets there, or does it not get there? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so, like, I still think the one of my biggest concerns is going between different groups of friends. Like, how is that going to be a thing? Like, I know they've brought up things like agent smithing and stuff like that, and jumping into NPCs of other people, but like those really great distances we've talked about, jumping between friends is a big thing for me. I play with many different groups. Not just to give you an example, as a content creator, we also jump between different content creators. One day I'll go hang out with Croncy, and then I'm hanging out with Space Tomato or Paul or Morphologist or whoever I'm hanging out with. You go different places, and I think it's going to kind of put a dampener on a lot of that stuff. Like, if you've got to travel 10 hours to go hang out with someone just for 2 hours and then turn around and come all the way back, like,
and that's why I think that the agent smithing is still going to be a thing. It was kind of envisaged as that way in which you're still in Stanton, you're physically still in Stanton, or you're skier, but you're temporarily taking the spot of an NPC. Now I know there are problems with that.
Yeah, how does reputation work? How does the loot work? So the way I almost think about it is, how they talked about multiple game packages. If you could have a different character that you just play with different people, so you've got a character in Stanton, and you've got a character over here, you could actually almost have a different character for each group you play with. But then things come in like, a lot of games that have rep, they have loss over time. So if you're playing with 5 different groups, you need 5 different characters. That there's so many.
There's other ways that they can do fast travel. So we haven't talked about kind of the Eve system of planting a route in real time, but the autopilot takes you the full way. So you align, you quantum. It's all done by the computer. And you can be a passenger for the whole journey. The other thing that potentially they could do, what would be the harm in doing an offline travel mode?
You know what I just had?
So if you're, let's say I'm in Hurston and I want to get to the Terra system. I'm going offline now. Why can't I get on some sort of public transport system while I'm AFK? Maybe it takes a lot longer than doing it in real time. But like you said, if that's time that I can utilize while I'm offline, I'm going to be at work for the next couple of days, so I'm not going to play. It's like you said.
I don't want to spend 10 hours getting there. I just want to be able to be there already. So
I thought of a way they can do it. If you want to hear me out, I literally just thought of it. There's a TV show called Dark Matter. Have either of you two seen it? It's been cancelled. It got cancelled a few years ago. Do you remember, Algared, the way they used to travel in that? So if you think about it, I will. But think about basically at the moment we have cloning, right? So basically, if I was on Hurston and Algared's on Crusader, and rather than me physically traveling, you know how they had the drones that would send the message. So that little bit of data has to be sent by a data runner. So that is actually sent from Hurston to Crusader, and then I'm genetically re-engineered or grown again. My clone is regrown at Crusader, and then I can spawn at Crusader. So travel could also be done in the black, so to speak. So if I know I want to go to Crusader the next morning, I can send myself there digitally, and so in the morning I would respawn at Crusader. Now, the way that also works across the game is in Dark Matter. When they traveled somewhere, a lot of the time they would just send themselves digitally, and it wasn't until they actually went back into the kind of like meltdown pod of the clone did their brain get sent the information of about where they'd been. So if you could actually make it so it's a risk versus reward thing. So while you're out and about, you could be doing the stuff, gaining the XP, but you don't actually get that XP sent back to your actual character unless you make it back. And then that is sent. Yeah, so that's actually sent back to your character, and you could actually get rep with another, I don't want to call it another group on the other side of the universe, as long as you actually get it sent back. I know that's copying Dark Matter, and they could change it a bit so it could you just get the XP, right?
Isn't that in a sense agent smithing?
It is.
Well, the idea of agent smithing, as I got it, was you're there, you go over, you fill up that character.
But there was a disconnect,
Algared. Go back.
So agent smithing is you just go in and you go back. Like like how are they connected? So what I'm saying is with the data running, there is actually a connection.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So you can actually put it in real world terms where you don't just instantly travel there, but data is sent very fast in system because it's just like a radio signal, but there still has to be a drone that goes through the warp thing. So agent smithing or dark matter or whatever they want to call it with the cloning is way faster than actually traveling, because it's the only travel is just the jump point travel, right? But the point is you don't have to physically travel, right? But then there becomes other things in there. It goes back to what Badger said. If you can send 500 people in the cloning facilities pumping out like clones like crazy, obviously that's the limit. You know, you can only have a certain number of clones in one spot at a time. You know what I mean? So if it actually needs you know, a computer to hold the connection, or how fast can the facility pump out clones, you can see how you can put a limit on it, yeah? Or I've lost you both.
I see the dark matter version is really just a version of the idea for agent smithing.
Okay. There's a little bit more to it than that.
And I know the dark matter one gives a lot more options because it cloned you with the gear you had and all the rest of it.
No, it doesn't.
You know, it cloned you, but you had to clone and then go off and then you come back and
no, it doesn't give Algared. It does not give you the gear. You are literally in a brand new naked body.
Yep, I did correct myself as I was going, but you didn't hear.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
But yeah, you dress yourself, you'd go out, you come back, you dissolve yourself, you go back and get the stuff. Agent smithing, I always had a problem with that, because if you're just taking over the NPC, do you really care if that NPC dies? No, you don't. No. But for the crew of a ship, that NPC could be really, really important.
Well, also does your rating come back? Like if you do a whole, like why you go over to that side and like do all this piracy stuff, but you come back here and you're a goody two shoe. You see what I mean? Like so.
Yep. And there are issues with that, and it's one of the things that I hear people complain about the idea of agent smithing. They see it can be gamed too easily, and it's true. But I think any system they set up could be gamed. It's just a matter of looking at trying to get fun into the game and get that balance of realism versus fun.
Like I said, I see an advantage to it because if the further the signal and then the drones are going to go, obviously the longer it takes to get there, right? But it is much faster than physically traveling there. So if I've got to go 10 systems to get to Space Tomato or whatever, I can probably do that in 30 minutes with the dark matter system. But with the with physically traveling there, it might take me 3 or 4 hours, you know. So there is an advantage there. So if I've just got to get there to do a one-off thing or an event or something like that, and they've got the guns and the gear at the other side, done, you know. That works. That really does work.
And I could see that was kind of the way they were thinking that the idea of the NPCs worked with agent smithing. You'd kind of zip over the NPC, you'd take over the NPC, you would have the NPC body in a sense. And I always struggle with that because, that might not have the gear that I'm used to using, or it may have crap gear.
Don't even mention personality, like he will act completely different, the relationships with the other NPCs and...
So... I know there are issues with it, but I can also see that the thinking that was going behind this, the idea. But yeah.
Badgers, your thoughts?
I must admit I'm not a fan of either. I know they were talking about agent smithing and stuff. I just think I think it's
Do you have an alternative?
For a game that seems to be building up so much on kind of like what your character does and having repercussions and, everything relates back to your character through the reputation system. So what you've done informs the way stuff interacts with you in the future.
So So I don't know if you were
I find
hearing.
it bizarre.
That's the difference between the agent smithing and the dark matter system.
Yeah.
So
that's the agent smithing side. So that the clone system, the whole taking up another clone.
Yeah, but
I find that a bit of a struggle.
So let me explain.
To justify.
So let me explain. So in the dark matter system, it's your consciousness that's transported. So basically, anything that comes back actually comes back to you. So if you do something bad on the other side of the universe, when it comes back to your body, they still know that you were bad on the other side. So your rep would be stuffed over there, right? And so it's the same thing. So you could go over there and stuff the UEE, and the UEE over here would know you'd stuff them. You know what I mean? It's that type of thing. It's cross-transferred. With the agent smithing, you go into an NPC, there are no consequences. You can do whatever.
No, I'm happy with all of that. I'm just trying to explain why I don't like either system, and I started with the agent smithing stuff. The transferring clone thing, I think it feels too similar to the Death of a Spaceman stuff, and I think.
And I was thinking that as well, but I actually think that is probably a bonus of that, because they're actually using the tech to actually, it's the next step. They're enhancing that tech, and they're using the consciousness and the mind think to go to send the stuff over to your subclone. So I could see that having a relationship with seems to make more sense law-wise, but I also see the problems with that. The problem I also have with that, and it's the same problem with agent smithing, even if you're doing literally, you change and you become, the NPC becomes you. The problem with it is if you die and your consciousness isn't sent back, you could be a bad guy and you could just suicide. Consciousness doesn't get sent, so and then, hey, I'm good.
Algared, so what I'm saying is that's how it was in dark matter, but I think evidently if you die over there, it's literally, you are if you're sending yourself electronically, you have essentially sent yourself electronically there. You are there essentially, right? It's very similar to right now where if I've got my medical respawn sent to Hurston and I'm in Grimhex and I kill myself, I just reappear in Hurston. It's the same thing. So what I'm saying is, instead of physically getting on a ship and having to travel all the way there, you're doing it digitally, but it would be a service that you have to pay for, because what's going to happen to your clone that's sitting back on Lawville while you're at Crusader?
They've got to maintain it and keep it and feed it and look after it. And
so it's a quicker travel system, but you travel with no gear because it's just your brain that's being sent, and you still have all the same repercussions, but also someone has to look after your clone back on the other side, right? And here's the worst part: if say you log out on a ship, if someone blows up the ship, you can't return, so you have to find the slow way back. You know what I mean? So there are actually repercussions. So if you log out on a ship and someone blows it up, so you are actually going to go to a facility where someone is looking after you, or you're going to want to be on a ship where your teammates are looking after you while you transfer to the other side. Can you see there is risk versus reward there?
I would say for something like that would be a reason you would have to go to a hospital. You'd have to go to a major centre and tier 1 type bed type place, and the top tier medical bed or top tier facility to do that type of transfer. And then the pickup would be at another top tier, just like on dark matter. They had the locations you'd actually go to.
I think that dark matter law fits in better with the regeneration system of the Vandal than the agent smithing does. I think that would work quite well.
I think so.
Yeah. Like I said, I can't really see them using either, because if that's an ability that the civilian market have that we have access to, why isn't the military using that against the Vandal?
They wouldn't. Well, how do you put a cloning system in Vandal space and just transport there?
You don't. You put it in every system to Vandal space. So every time a human system is invaded,
so it's got to have a limitation, right? So as I said, the limitation is twofold. It's either you limit the speed at which the bodies can be cloned. You also limit the maybe you need to have you are still, because in dark matter you are still connected to your brain, right? So your body is usually sitting in some kind of chair, and it's kind of like connecting to the Matrix, but they're sending it across the other side of the universe, and you're interacting with the body, and so you're in two places at once. Your body's in Lawville, but you're in Crusader. So if you made it like
all
that,
of the military are somewhere well away from Vandal space.
That would cost so much money. There's no. You would need a facility of. You'd need to have 2,000 pods in one place and 2,000 clones in another place. You see what I mean? It doesn't work.
The money would come from the fact that you wouldn't have to train anywhere near as much as you need to train to replace actual battle casualties. Because all you do is on the systems that are threatened.
But the Vandal stuff is a new technology, and you have to have the spheres. You have to be able to recover the spheres and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like now we're massaging the story to fit a gameplay element
rather than...
what
story is!
Mate,
that's what story is. That is 100%. Hang on, sorry. That is 100% how story works. Is to give a lore reason to why a certain gameplay works, or a critique of a storyline for the outcomes that the writer or the director wants. That is literally how this works. Connecting the dots. Algared.
I was going to say the beauty is like if they do decide to go with something like that, and I've got to admit the dark matter style method tied in to the depth of the spaceman's regeneration spheres has a sense of it makes sense. But the beauty is we don't have to think of the law. If they decide to go with it, that's Dave Haddock's job.
Yeah, I do agree though. It does bring up other repercussions, badges. I'll definitely give you that. But it's the best way that I've seen, and they've probably got another way. It's probably completely different. In fact, I would say that it probably is.
Look,
we've decided a requirement for a system that doesn't have to exist. What's wrong with people just traveling around normally?
Because it's too slow.
Because that's all we know that it's coming at the minute, right?
Yeah.
Because at the moment, if I'm traveling between a system, I could have a cops. If I've just got in quantum or whatever, and the cops turn up, or I get interdicted and I'm off going to the toilet or getting a drink.
Yes.
I think it's a reason to kind of show what the agent smithing system could be, like, because they've talked about it a few times, right? And as Algared said, though, there just didn't seem to be any repercussions to not agent smithing, right? So does it mean if you jump in an NPC, are you stuck with their stats? Can you increase their stats? Can you kill them? Can you affect their stats? Like that's what Algared's trying to say. There's a complete disconnect. You are literally taking yourself out of your own character and going into a random NPC. That's the disconnect. Hang on.
Well, yes.
And what I'm trying to do
the trade-off is that you gain nothing from it. In terms of game value, the trade-off is that you get to play with friends at a whim without having to travel across half the galaxy to do it.
This is true.
I mean, is that not the...
This is true.
That's the trade-off. And
the purpose of agent smithing was to enable you to do that. And I know CIG talked about, originally I know it was any NPC, and then I kind of got called as to, well, maybe it's just the extra NPCs people have got. And so I know it's part of that idea of what do we do with those people who've got extra game packs.
And you've also got the negatives, because like you could literally transfer to an NPC and then go do something negative in your own system. You know, so you could, as you said, there's no repercussions. So you could literally get in like a javelin and fly a javelin into an enemy base, and then just log back into your own character and go, oh, that base is free now. You get what I mean? Like, so there are. What I'm trying to do is connect repercussions with the actual events of an NPC. So there is no foolproof system, badges. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think the idea of agent smithing is literally you. Just like when Agent Smith takes over one of the characters in the Matrix, that NPC disappears and Agent Smith turns up. And I imagine that'd be what the idea of agent smithing was. If you took over an NPC, that NPC disappeared temporarily and you took over that place. But it's only ever been talked about as an idea of how we can solve the issue of you're at different ends of the universe and you guys want to play together, and it's going to take too long to travel.
If that's the case and there's no drawbacks for dying in an agent smithing, why isn't that the de facto state for everybody? Why don't you always agent smith
badges,
instead of risking yourself?
So what you're missing, badges, right, is where we are trying to figure out a way that you can do both. And I don't think there is at the end of the day.
No,
is what
and
I'm
I
trying
don't
to
think
say.
CIG know yet.
Yeah,
and I know
exactly.
they've talked about agent smithing as being a way to use those additional game packs that people have on the same account. I know they've talked about giving them personalised NPCs. I know they've talked about it as being, well, maybe you could actually create one as being your heir, or having them as different locations in the game. But they're all things they've talked about, 2014, 2015, 2016. CIG haven't really worked out what they want to do with those. They know what the problem they've got. They know they've got people who've got multiple accounts on multiple game packages on the same account.
It could be as simple as
different.
It could be as simple algorithm as just you get multiple characters. So that is the most simple fix, but it's also the hardest to maintain.
And that is different from having alt accounts with accounts on a different account.
I'm talking about alt.
Yeah, I know.
I'm talking about alt accounts, and I think the
but
problem
alt
with
accounts is totally different.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, the problem with alt accounts is that you have to maintain them. And so if you have alt accounts, that has a problem on its own as well. I don't think there is any happy medium, and we're going to go in circles here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it here, because this is one of those discussions that went far further than I thought it was going to go, but it did go to some interesting places. But I think we'll all agree there is still too much up in the air for this one, yeah? But let us know your thoughts below in the comments below, because it is an interesting topic, where agent smithing and dark mattering, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think there is any, you can tell right here between the three of us, there is no perfect solution. And I will be interested to see where it lands. And that seems to be the three methods, yeah? The agent smithing, dark mattering, or alternative accounts. They're the three.
Yeah, but I think the difference is alternate accounts and those with multiple packages on the same account. That's slightly different, and it might be.
Yes, I
don't think CIG know how they're dealing with that.
I don't think there is a difference between multiple packages and alternative accounts. I think it is the same thing.
No, it's totally different. Totally different.
All right, well, we'll talk about that
because it's logging into a different account as opposed to characters. And I don't think CIG have the answer, and I don't think we've got the answer, and that's the big thing there. But anyway,
yes, I get what you mean by different accounts, because it's technically a different login. I'm talking because you're talking about sharing of ships and stuff like that. Yes, I get where you're coming from now. Yes, I get where you're coming from. It's similar but different. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yes. So, in regards to that, is there anything, Badgers, you would like to hear from people below in the comments in regards to everything we've gone over? Because it's went some interesting places, this one.
Yeah, I think the overarching thing for me, and I'd be interested to hear what the viewers think, is convenience versus immersion. Does too much convenience break the back of what CIG is trying to achieve? Yeah. Are there alternatives to fast travel, like making travel that much more interesting?
So
let me know.
Weird balance, isn't it? Because you've got the time poor people versus the time rich, and how do you kind of strike that balance? Because if it is going to be a very time intensive game, that just cuts so many people out straight off the bat, and some people not just the time, some people are just not going to want to spend the time. Like I know people that can't spend 40 minutes on a League of Legends games. How are they going to spend,
hours on Star Citizen? And it kind of ties into that whole buy the ships now or grind for the ships type thing. It's the same type of argument or consideration you're really looking at. So it is a conundrum, isn't it? And I'm like I said, I'm not sure CIG have worked out how they're dealing with it.
Is there anything you'd like to hear in the comments below, Algared?
Yeah, what do you guys think? How do you think CIG can, or what suggestions do you have for how CIG can solve the conundrum of time and friends being separated over vast distances of the Empire or the game?
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I think the other one I'd want to hear is because for me a lot of the stuff is bug related at the moment. I think I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's bug related, but do you want it to be that detailed? Do you want to have to get onto an interplanetary flight and just sit there for 10 minutes? Is that the same version of WoW or other MMOs to you, and that little bit of a punishment thing because you don't have your own aircraft, and what are the little mini games they can do between flights and stuff. Like I can see it for some professions, but I can't see it for others. So are they going to literally have the chess set that you play in the back of the Millennium Falcon and stuff like that? So there's every little thing they add just makes it take so much longer to get to that fully complete game, so to speak. And as they say, you know, the game will never be complete, and it'll be it's something they work on forever type of thing. But you know, Chris is only, you know, does that mean this game goes beyond us, you know, our lifetimes? Does it, how deep does the rabbit hole go?
I suppose it ties in. We were talking EverQuest recently, and you know, EverQuest is still running. It's still got servers that are running. Sony are still running it, and yet, you know, it's 25 or so years since it started. You know, so yeah,
all right.
I used to work. You know, so yeah.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. And if you want to go the extra mile, consider backing us on Patreon and stuff like that. Helps us out with equipment. Badger should have a new camera soon, as in a temporary one, but we do want to get him a more full-fledged one, and obviously mine's still... And Execute does need a new one. We pretty certain we've isolated it down to the camera being faulty, so... Unfortunately. It's an expense we've got to look at sucking up. Yeah, so I'll be in one of those soon, hopefully. Yeah, we recorded a couple of Fix My Fleets this week. We've got another one to go. We're going to drop those for you guys around AIE or leading up to AIE. That gives us a bit of a breather, and it's a good time because you guys will then be in the same kind of mindset. So yeah. Yeah, and the ones we've got so far, they're all slightly different in the way in what the people are after and what they're doing, and even the solutions are quite different as well. So. Especially that one. Worth looking at. Especially that one specifically. So yeah, there's one, as we said on a live stream, it was one of the worst fleets we've ever seen from a fixing perspective, but it also had one of the most interesting solutions we've ever had, which was interesting. All right, with that then, he's been Algared, he's been Badgers, and we'll catch you. He's been Execute, and we're out of here. I forgot to say my own name. Anyway, we'll catch you in the next one. That's okay.